Yes. Hey guys, welcome to the live stream on the weekend. And here I am under the, oops, sorry about that, the beautiful Tommy Bahama umbrella. Streaming right here from the beach in Naples, Florida. Look at this. Beauteous Maximus. Couldn't be a better weekend. The temperature here is in the 70s and the humidity is low. And thank you for joining me on this live update. I'm sitting here under the umbrella and just enjoying this beauty in front of me. You know, it's so important to, let me back up a little bit, to live in the present, you know, whatever you have with you and around you. And I try to practice gratitude in the morning. I don't try to practice it, I do practice it. I have like a set routine, I think, that is important for me, and it really helps. You know, it's something that came about the last 2 years of my life, of setting in place routines and also setting in place strategies and systems. Systems are so important as well because you can get so much done with systems. Routines kind of hold you to discipline. You know, when you're the kind of person that has the tendency, and I think there's a little bit of this in all of us, to procrastinate some. It's very important to come up with a strategy that helps you lock in what is inside you anyway, that string of discipline. You know, you want to do better. You want to achieve more, right? So when I came with this line of routine for my life, an actual timetable for my day, and I use it for every single day because it works for me that way. There's a couple of apps that I use that are really fun that you can put like different voices and musical reminders that it's the time of day to go from this routine to the next routine. And it's really cool. Now, I got this from a fellow named Sam Ovens. That's his real name, Ovens, Sam. And I think he's from Ireland or Scotland. He's got one of those accents that we Americans over here find a little interesting. He's an interesting guy. He's very dry and serious, and at the same time has humor. And he has these routines and these things that he does. And when he talks about them, it's just like you go, yeah, you know, that makes so much sense. And I really am wasting time doing something different. So that's a routine that's about routines that I find that has really changed my life. About getting up at a certain time, going to bed at a certain time, doing different things at certain times, where your body just gets so used to it. We're like animals, I think, of routines. You know, we want to have these things happen for us like on a daily basis. And it just coincides, I think, so great with the way the whole universe works. The universe is on like such a time consistent basis that, you know, we can time using stuff that the universe gives us. A flight from New York City to Honolulu, Hawaii, and land that jet on a dime when we get there. And what we have are so many things that are not constant, like the wind, the weather. One constant is the way the Earth is rotating. Magnetic forces sometimes move about a little bit. But all in all, with the guidance systems we have, using the things that the universe gives us, we can land, right on a hair point, cross point there. Now, this whole talk about me, my name's Dave Jackson. I don't know if you've ever happened upon any of my videos online, but my choice is to now try to help other people. For me, at first, it was a real challenge to, look at this going by here. Did I get those pelicans going by? A real challenge to find anything about what I was interested in and trying to do with my life, or what was happening in my life, and how I could use everything in my power to change it or to make it better. During the end of January of this year, this is so recent for me, so maybe this is very helpful to you if you're also trying to find information about if you have some kind of a disease or some kind of a challenge going on in your health, what to do. And for this particular protocol that I'm doing, there is information online, but you really have to dig for it. And so far, there's not a whole lot of, where you get, especially in ketogenic diets, you have so many people saying so many different things. Basically, it does boil down to eating a diet that's low in carbs, high in fat, and proteins. It depends on what kind of ketogenic diet you're doing. Could be that, let me just say that if you're doing more of a therapeutic thing for medicinal purposes, it is important to keep your proteins low. If you're not, if it's just to lose weight or to help with some kind of issue that's going on with your skin or your hair or your face, or something like that, then I don't think proteins are that much of a matter to be freaking out about how many proteins. So at the end of January, I am already celiac, right? I'm allergic to wheat. So we had gone out, a group of us, to celebrate somebody's birthday. I ordered, at the time, no keto diet, nothing going on. I ordered a gluten-free pizza, which I understand is full of carbs, but at the time I could eat it, so I ate the pizza, and then the next day I was feeling this itching. That's what happens to me when I eat something that has gluten in it. I get this stuff happening on my skin, I itch a lot. If the official name is dermatitis herpetiformis, is the type of celiac that I have. So I thought, okay, I got into somebody else's pizza because we're having a fun night, drinking wine and what have you. And after a couple days, that went away. So I thought, okay, that's all it was some kind of gluten that I got in me. So the next couple of days, I know, because I'm really strict on my gluten-free diet, I started itching again. I go, man, what is this? Maybe it's wine, because at that time I was a prolific wine drinker. If there was a bottle of wine left on the table and we were sort of all done, I would make sure that wine would be gone by the end of the evening. That's how much I drank. I didn't drink anything hard. It was more wines. And I knew, in the back of my mind, I knew it was doing a number on my liver. At the time, I wasn't sure how bad, but and this itching came on again, and I'm going, okay, it must be something to do with my liver and the wines, so I just gotta stop. So I decided, okay, just let's stop this, and then the itching persisted. It became uncomfortable. I noticed that I was also when you look in the white of my eyes, I noticed I was turning a little jaundiced, and I thought, okay, this is getting a little serious. It's something more than I can sweat out in the bathtub. You ever do that? Get a really hot cup of tea and say, I'm gonna sweat this cold or this fever or this flu out of me. And I've done that before, and for me it works. I thought, man, I could sweat out any kind of disease, but you can't. You get to a point where this thing's bigger than you and the bathtub. So I called my local doctor and said, Kavita, that's her name, Kavita, I need to come in and see you and find out what's going on with me. I went in and I saw her nurse, Gail. And Gail goes, it looks like something going on with the liver. I guess what we need to do is have some blood work done and look at your liver enzyme numbers. So she ordered that kind of blood work to be done, the kind where you have the, what do you call it, the plate, the table that, has to do with liver. And when it came back a couple of days later, indeed it showed that my liver enzymes were off. My bile numbers were like off the charts too. I had two things at that time that were like interesting things that led me to Google, of course. One, my urine was dark. It looked dark, like it had something going on in it, like maybe bile. I didn't know, at the time. And then also another thing was my stool, if we can be frank, was chalky. So when I looked up like liver issues, those are the two main things. You have dark urine and your stool is chalky looking. There's no color in it at all. And I'm thinking, gosh, what's going on here? So the more you dig, more stuff you find. I mean, there is a way that I go about my Google searches, because I find it interesting that if you search on Google, you will find tons of answers, but some of them are centuries old, and some of them are just regurgitated information that people who know how to construct pages for ad clicks, because that's something I used to do. You get like a paragraph from one page, paragraph from another page. You also have what's called a spinner, where you can spin like words around. Instead of using impossible, you use like improbable, or like can't be done. It just like takes word. And the articles say sort of like the same thing, but they use different words, so Google will keep ranking them. Because if you do like exact copies of articles, Google will say, don't want to put that in our search results because it's an exact copy of this guy over here. So a lot of times when you do a Google search for stuff, you'll find websites that have like a ton of ads, a ton of things they want you to click on, and the article is like sparse between all these ads, and that's not where you want to go. You either want to go to like papers that are clinical, scientific studies that have been done, or you want to go to like really reputable places. And I'm not talking about WebMD or Mayo Clinic or any of these clinics. A lot of these clinics I have found, with the exception of a few studies, are still dealing with conventional medicine that's been practiced since the 1800s, and they're not moving. They'll tell you that liver disease is this, you probably have to have a liver transplant and all this stuff, and there's no other way out of it. At the same time, I was enamored by a guy named Jordan Peterson. He's a philosopher, and I liked some of his interviews on YouTube. I just thought it was fascinating. Some of his answers to things had nothing to do with any of my health issues, but I was reading through his, and listening to him on YouTube, and trying to find out new stuff about him, maybe some of the latest things of what happened to him and that kind of thing. And on Google, this happened on March the 13th, where I had already been through a series of echogram, what do you call it, sonograms, and also because in the whatever you call it's not called a sonogram, but it's uses the same type of instrument, where they're trying to see what's in your body using echoes. Gosh, what's the word? Well, anyway, they wanted to do an MRI. The MRI was done on March 12th. The person there, because you kind of, if you're nice enough, you can start talking to some of the techs, And I was talking to him and said, and she goes, yeah, we're getting plenty of good pictures, to tell you that much. And the point at where The let me back up in the story just a little bit because to make more sense for you. I had gone back to Nurse Gail, and she said, "Yeah, we got some issues. It looks like there's issues going on with your liver, so I'm going to send you to this gastroenterologist who we do business with." That's a referral that you need because of your health insurance here in the United States. So I went to Dr. Steve Mextruth is his name here in Naples, Florida. Because the word for me, gastroenterologist, is so long and sometimes hard to say, I just call him my gastro guy. And, I went to see him, and he immediately ordered these radiology pictures. And we did the echogram or whatever it's called. Didn't see much there. And then he ordered an MRI because an MRI is more, it's more serious, costs more money for some reason. And you go in this machine that's very noisy. It's not like a CT scan or a PET scan, which is quiet and is different. This thing actually, you can feel, I felt like magnetic things going through my body on some of the stronger pictures. So there you go. But they got enough pictures where he called me back and said, "Dave, I see a tumor. There's a tumor involved here that is like choking your bile ducts. So your bile ducts are dilated. This is the reason why bile is flowing into your bloodstream, going out through your urine, and also making you itch I'm telling you, I was pricking skins and everything. Morning. And things were going on, that is not normal. So I wanted immediate relief from the itching. And the nurse there, Nurse Gail, said, get on this prednisone. Of course, prednisone will only cover up stuff, so it worked as long as I was in the prednisone. After that went away, I started itching again. But anyway, we're dealing with a tumor now, and I'm thinking, okay, need to find out either how to shrink tumors or get rid of tumors or what's going on in my body. I was waiting also to find out what the next step was from my gastro guy. But this is the history behind me anyway. On right around the 13th or 14th, it was March 13th, I was doing, like I said, this Google searching for Jordan Peterson, and I come upon this link that talks about his daughter and this weird diet that she had to do because she had so many health issues since she was a child. And the issue was eliminating foods until they got down to the only thing that she could really eat was meat and salt. Salt and meat, that was it. And that cured her of so many things. And I'm going, yeah, I used to be, and I still am, a carnivore. I love meat. And I was a very good carnivore for probably a year before all this took place. But I was also a heavy drinker as far as the wine goes. So a lot of alcohol involved with washing that meat down. Anyway, in the Google search, I clicked on this link that talked about a therapeutic ketogenic diet that would help in the shrinking or the making tumors stay in their place, not spreading, that kind of thing. That was so fascinating to me because I'm all for the Hippocratic oath of, let food be your medicine. And I started reading about it, and that's how I got onto what we're talking about today. And sorry that it took so long, but not really sorry, because I think you need to know the background behind these things and, hear about the why. So I started reading about this and thought, this is so fascinating how somebody can introduce a ketogenic diet that would work against the spreading of tumors in your body. I knew I had one. For my relief, what they do is called an ERCP, which is the placing of a plastic, this is crazy, but they go down your throat, puncture through your stomach, go over to the bile ducts, and place a plastic stent right down the center of one of those bile ducts. So it opens up the bile duct and allows the bile to go through, and then you're sort of back to normal. You're not normal because you got plastic in you, right? But man, it alleviates. Look at me today. Back in those days, and I made some videos that I have not released to the public, but just of my timeline. And I look at them and I go, man, this guy, I don't look like super good today. I look sort of beat up because of what's going on with me. but I am so much better than I was just from the relief of letting the body function the way it should. So what I did is I went immediately on March 14th. I started buying and looking and trying to figure out what is this therapeutic ketogenic diet. And I found a website in my Google searches called Cancer V, like Victor, .me. And I think what Maggie Jones meant to put in her it's a blog really, but it talks all about the ketogenic diet and if you have cancer, was cancer versus me, Cancer v me. So it's really cool. I went on Maggie's blog there on that website, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't have cancer. I waited until the samples came back because they did some sampling of the tissue around this tumor when they did the placing of the stent in my bile duct. It came back non-cancerous, and so the whole family's like jumping up and down for joy. It's not cancer, it's just a tumor. But when I got word back from the gastro guy, he goes, I don't believe it. Doesn't sound like that's right. I think this is some kind of a cancer, And he says, I want you to go up to the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, Florida. So that was the next step. But here I am reading Maggie's blog. I'm looking at it, and she's talking all about her stage 4 cancer. She has glioblastoma, which is a brain cancer that's, up until recently, or up until people started doing this ketogenic diet, it's been totally it's fatal within so many months. But for her and for many other people now that have been following this, they have seen reversals. Even she, at a time, I'm not sure where she's at right now, but there was one time she was totally cancer-free. Can you believe that? From following this protocol. So I'm thinking, yeah, that's where I want to go, even though I didn't admit at the time that I had cancer because I hadn't heard the diagnosis yet, right? Went up to Moffitt, did some tests up there, blood work, talked to the nurse. We did a CT scan up there that showed that there was some kind of stuff going on near my gallbladder. My gallbladder numbers in the blood test were way off the charts, like in the thousands, right? And you're supposed to be around 0.2 or something like that. So she said, yeah, there's issues going on out there, Dave. We have to, it looks like something's happening. They don't tell you right out that, yep, you have it. They just say it appears to be. So to catch up closer to what's happening currently, I went up there for another session up to Tampa. I live in Naples, Florida, so it's like a 2-hour and 30-minute drive up to Moffitt, and went for my biopsy up there. Biopsy day was fun. They put you under sedation, but not so far where you fall asleep. I was daydreaming, and they're sticking this needle in me, and I'm thinking, they were telling me they were going to go to some of the other things they saw on the CT scan. Now, what they did see on the CT scan that I didn't know till later was that my cancer has gone to other little parts of my body. There are 2 types of cancer I found out, going through all of this. There's kind that just sit in one place, and they're like farmers, and they do their little thing in their patch of stuff that they're messing with in your body. There are other types that are sort of like marauders, or however you say that. They're like warriors that go out and just go all over your body, and sometimes settle down in different places in your body. And that's the kind that I have, the kind that like having fun traveling. So she didn't want to mess with the needle going to some of the smaller spots. She went right in close to my gallbladder, and of course she told me you don't do a biopsy of the gallbladder because it's like a balloon, you could pop it, I guess. So she went really close to that. But the thing is about this, I was daydreaming about stuff. You know how you think, okay, there's stuff that I have to do, and then that leads to another thought, and you're laying there on the biopsy table, and then I'm daydreaming. The next thing I hear is this Band-Aid being ripped off from the side where, excuse me, that the Band-Aid, that the biopsy was happening. And that was it. She was done. She goes, okay, all set. And I didn't feel a thing, and I'm thinking that's the way I want things to be through this whole journey is if they have to do something that hurts or that's going to modify my body in such a way where they have to cut or I'm going to go through pain, I want it to act it's just like the stent they put in. I keep telling the doctors and nurses there, I want to be like I wasn't even there. And so far, this is my second stent in my bile duct. and it was perfect. I mean, I woke up and it's like, man, this is the way I want it to be. So the biopsy went the same way. Went home. The next day, my nurse from Moffitt calls me. She said it's kind of funny that the results come through so quick because usually it takes 4 to 7 days. She said we have the results already, and she says you have what appears to be. You know, they don't tell you you have gallbladder cancer or you have liver cancer or something like that. They say you have what appears to be. I guess maybe there's some kind of legalese in that where they can't say it. I'm not sure, but for whatever reason, she told me that, and I'm going, okay, what's the next step? And she goes, well, you have to find an oncologist down there in Naples because the next step is going to be the chemotherapy. So that's where we are currently. Yesterday, I went to the surgeon who's going to do a placement of what is called a port. And the port, according to everybody I've talked to that's been through this same thing, and I'm not the first one that's having a port placed, believe me. You kind of think you are, but for some of these things that happen in your body, you think, gosh, there's this fear of the unknown. But the port thing was one of the things I didn't Google about too much because to me it's like a scary, not scary thing, but I don't like to have anything to do with blood and veins and things. Leave that to the doctors and nurses. If you got to put it in, okay, put me to sleep while you do it, and they do. Although, everybody's telling me they put you to sleep, but the surgeon told me yesterday, yeah, it's a sedative that puts you, you're almost there, but, you're not like deep. So I'm hoping that I don't feel anything anyway, because he showed me the device, and it's different from the ones I've seen in the past, because I've seen people's ports that have done either dialysis or they've done chemotherapy, and some of them look like the size of a quarter on the front of their body, where it looks like you attach like a vacuum cleaner thing or some kind of an electrical conduit, but it's not that. This thing, and I did go to Google some pictures to see what the after looks like. And I'm telling you, this thing like sits below the skin. You can't really see it except that it pops out a little bit. So it's not like this plastic thing that sits on the top of your skin, which to me was kind of cool. But they see where it is, and then that's where they place the needle or, whatever they have to put on there, the chemo stuff. Now, the reason why everybody's telling me that it's so good is because, if you have to like thread this long needle for chemo or any kind of IV, you have to get it to follow down a vein pretty far so it doesn't start coming up the other way, I suppose. I'm not sure why, but they have to track these things, thread them, they call them. And this just, it has a tail on it, so it threads down the artery, I guess, that runs right under your collarbone here. So I don't want to know anymore. All I want to know is that it's placed on there and we're going to be good. That happens on Monday, bright and early, 9:45. I think I have to be there an hour early, but that's totally okay. I'm fine with that. I think I'm fine. The only thing that it's not so fine about it is that when you get this port, I mean, think about it. That is actually, to me, that I work in marketing and branding and this kind of thing, is sort of like a brand that you have cancer, you have something serious going on with you, and we have this thing, that shows that you are one of the ones that has it. I mean, before your mind is thinking like, this is all a dream, this can't be happening, why me? You walk about Costco or any kind of supermarket or any kind of place in public and you go, so many people, even here on the beach, so many people have beautiful, I don't know, maybe they don't, but beautifully functioning livers and gallbladders. And me, I have this big thing going on. But you can't think that way too long because your mind will get into this downward spiral, which is such a slippery slope if you let it go that way. So don't do that. My advice to you is, you can think about it for a minute. When I mentioned the part about branding to both the nurse and the surgeon, they both said it's not permanent, Dave. I mean, it's like a thing you're going to have that facilitates. The reason why you love it so much is because chemo does a number on your veins, as well as your body. And you want something that's facilitates that, makes it easier for the drug to get in, for them to draw blood when they need to. So all this is makes me feel better about the whole process of getting this foreign thing put on my body, but I guess it makes me bionic in a way. Now I want to get into a couple of things that I'm doing and why. Maybe you wonder why the therapeutic ketogenic diet is so good for cancer. If you have cancer, if you have some kind of other disease, why does this work so well? For people that have tumors happening in their body, which is a common occurrence when you start having, cells that get into trouble and are not breathing right, they don't get the metabolic information that they need. Sometimes they mutate and turn into a cancerous cell, and those kind of cells just start to like rapidly dividing because that's their. I mean, all cells, if you think about it, from when we were like, millions of years ago, cells want to separate, divide. They want to grow. Everything in the universe has this thing about surviving and growing. Survival of the fittest, and even though the cancer cell is not the fittest, it is hardy and it's hard to kill. Let me tell you a little bit about the cell structure. The mitochondria, which is the outer layer of the cell, if you compare that to a normal cell looks, they even look pretty, they have all these things going on in them. They have, there's so much in a cell. And if you compare a healthy cell to a cancerous cell, I mean, the mitochondria is all crapped up. It looks like it's been through the grinder. It's already in like an unhealthy state. Although they multiply so fast, the white blood cells and your system that like cleans up stuff has a hard time with keeping up with these guys. So what is so good about the ketogenic diet is that these cells, now a normal cell is different. Normal cell has a receptor for ketones, right? And a cancerous cell does not. A cancerous cell, when it develops, it has a receptor for glucose, and even though it can adapt to some other things like lactic acid and other things it can use for fuel, for the most part, I mean, its tank, it goes off the chart when you feed it glucose, and that is why it's so important. Do you hear me? So important to lay off carbs, which in our bodies turn to glucose, and sugars, which, man, they go right down in the system and they're sugar, right? So they feed these beasts. And what you want to do is this already crappily looking cell, you want to starve it. And that's what getting into therapeutic ketosis does. It starves those particular cells. And they found this out through scientific testing, that your normal cells, including your brain cells, which mainly are fueled by glucose, can adapt to ketones. And they do it very efficiently using the fats in your body. Your fats turn into ketones, and ketones are the fuel. It's one of the most efficient fuels, if not the most efficient fuel in your whole system. That's the way this thing works. It feeds your body normally. I'm like approaching day 3 of a 3-day fast, and I'm riding on ketones. I'm riding on the fat that's still in my body. I could keep going for a long time because your body has been, through evolution, has been adjusted to run off of fats when there's no food around. So this makes perfect sense to use this as a therapy to knock off these cancer cells. Now, why does this work so well with chemotherapy? Well, the reason it does is because chemo, in addition to knocking off a lot of great cells, a lot of your healthy cells, it goes after these damaged cells that are like limping around in your body, even though they're like multiplying. They have the first whammy by you being in deep ketosis, right? Because you're starving those guys and they're looking for food. And then in comes these killing chemicals, which are designed as much as they can to kill off the cancerous cells and try to leave the good cells alone. We haven't come up with that ingredient, that formula yet, that it goes after 100% of the cancer cells, except for using a therapeutic keto diet. And I'm telling you, here's another thing that goes into, I did mention fasting just a little while ago, but therapeutic ketosis along with the fasting seems to be the 1-2 punch that knocks out just like 90% of the cancers, especially the ones that feed on glucose. They're glucose feeders. There are other cancers like pancreatic cancer that this therapy does not work for, because pancreatic cancer can, like I said before, adapt to different forms of surviving, and one of those forms is feeding off of fats or even ketones. So you got to be very careful what you use this therapy with. But for the most part, this is very encouraging. The thing that's going to be encouraging to me, on the 13th of this month, I go to get my first ever PET scan. I've never done one of those, but this is supposed to show, it'll be the first marker anyway. I'm not sure if it's going to show any difference between the CT scan I did and the measurements they're going to make in the PET scan. But it will show where these guys are, their size, their veracity, how strong they are and that kind of thing. I'm really interested in looking at that, because on the next PET scan I want to see the difference, and I want to show my oncologist and Nurse Joy, who works there with my doctor Santiago, the effects that we can do with diet. So I'm really encouraged about that. I'm very strict with my diet. I'm doing everything I can as far as researching the different foods that I love to nibble on, to make sure that they fit within my deep ketosis diet. And I also, I got from Maggie's site, and in working in marketing, there is a norm as well, is that when you start marketing, when you start helping somebody to do marketing on their social media, you have to measure everything that happens. And we have these indexes that we use. We use Google Sheets. You use like spreadsheets to say, okay, today you had 32 visitors. Next day you had 64. Next day you had 72. Then it went down. What did we do that was different that made the visitors go down? And the reason why this is so important to measure is because you got to figure out, what are you doing that made these changes? The same thing happens with the therapeutic ketose diet, is that you want to measure what's going on in your body. You want to measure your glucose, and you want to measure your ketones to find out what you're ingesting, your lifestyle, things that you're doing, if they're affecting your ketone level. I use what's called the GKI index, or the glucose ketone index, which I believe was founded by Dr. Thomas Seyfried, which came up with the press pull or press push therapy as well, which is the 1-2 knockout, which is first doing the ketogenic diet and then the fasting, or both in conjunction. Well, you can't do both in conjunction because one's feeding and the other one's fasting, right? But if you get into a deep state of ketosis, then go into fasting, I'm not talking about a 24-hour fast. I'm talking about a fast long enough where the body gets into autophagy, which is the body cleaning up these crappy cells that are happening, like dead cells in your body, and getting rid of them. The body resetting a lot of stuff, like resetting stem cells, resetting your immune system. And this happens after like 72 hours, or actually 24, 48 hours, your body starts changing. Now we have to use ketones to keep going through this fast. And that's what happens. It's exciting. I got a voice message from one of my friends in Portugal who is a instructor in keto diet, ketosis, for weight loss and looking better, and for helping health-wise. And I would say that Fernanda is more into the health-wise benefits of this than for people that want to lose weight. But a lot of people that want to lose weight get on her system because they look at her and she's just the epitome of health. You know, she looks so fit. So Fernanda sends me this voicemail and she says, let me tell you about fasting. And I have been studying fasting for the past few days only because of one thing, and it was because Maggie mentions it on her blog that the first time she did the chemotherapy, she didn't do any fasting. And when she came home, I mean, the next few hours, the next few days, she was just like throwing up, got sick, got those things that you always hear about people going through with chemotherapy, right? I'm not sure how she stumbled upon Victor Longo's studies of doing fasting before chemotherapy, and everybody indicates a 72-hour fast. And this 72-hour fast, for everyone, it seems, that has to go in to do chemotherapy, works miracles. I mean, you feel much less of the after effects of chemotherapy. And the other thing it does is, according to science now, is it actually increases the effect of the chemotherapy. And who doesn't want that, right? You want those things to go in there and kill off the beast, correct? And you want it to get the bad cells more than the good cells. So the way, I'm not sure how Maggie came up with this. Maybe she stumbled on it. She doesn't say on her blog, on a Google search, but she did come up with why is it so important to do fasting before chemotherapy session. And some people even fast like for 24 hours after the session, just to keep going, you know, for the body to like reset even more. I may do that. I haven't had a session yet, haven't been set up for a session yet. But I am doing this fasting before my surgery just because I want the body to be in top shape, you know, and I can't wait until the day I come home from the surgery, which is Monday, to start nibbling on some of my goodies that I've bought. During fasting, and you're out in a shopping center and you're, you know, not to say that you're not hungry those first couple of days, because you are. Today I'm not so much, because this is like almost in day 3 of my fast. And those hunger thoughts, not going to say pangs because it's not really a pang, but the hunger things subside. But when you're in the hunger thing, you know, and you're looking at the supermarket, you know, you're looking at the back of the labels to see if it's something that you can nutritionally fit into your diet. For me, it's high fats, low protein, 0 carbs, 0 sugars. That's all I care about. And for the most part, brie cheese fits in that. Now, I've done as much study as I think I can. There's a couple of people out there, but the association is too loose to say that cheese is like a carcinogenic. I don't think it is. I think as soon as the body gets it, it starts turning this stuff into fat just like anything else and uses it as fuel. You know, it doesn't like take out the, you know, the parts that nobody has been able to really prove the mechanics of. Cheese being able to make a cancer cell go crazy. It's never been done. It's just the association that, and that's such loose science, because how do you know if that person also had something going on in their body that made the cancer thrive, you know, in addition to the cheese, you know? So it's one of those kind of things. It's kind of crazy me sitting here on the beach because I'm totally out of the shade in my umbrella, and the umbrella is so far ahead. But the reason why I'm doing it this way is because the camera's set right there, but we can turn the camera a little bit. So the fasting part is so beneficial. Let me tell you the way that Victor Longo came up with this. He was in college and school and university, and they were doing tests. You know how you get to do tests in biology with the, trying to see what angle we can put this out. I can turn my umbrella like this. Actually, we can go all the way back to the beach. Right? There we go. How's that, dear son? Yeah, now you get to see the beach, right? You get the angle just right for you guys. Yeah. So Victor was doing some experiments. They were doing some crazy stuff. Like they had mice to work with. And the crazy thing they were doing was they were taking these mice and seeing how they would work with chemotherapy, with chemo drugs. So the first set of mice they injected with the chemo drugs, let them eat anything they want. The second set, they did a low carb, high fat, which is ketogenic diet, and injected them with the chemotherapy. The third set, they also did this is if my memory serves me right, but the part that's the trigger is something I will not forget, is they did the third set, they just didn't give them anything to eat. Nothing to eat, and they gave them the chemotherapy drug. And the drug, and this is all documented, and there is a good documentary that I'll put down in the comments below or in the description below, because I want you to watch it. It's an hour long. It's produced in France. It's really cool. May get for you a little boring at times, but I want you to watch it. I mean, it's important. We're talking about your health, you know? This is like life and death type stuff. So I think it's important, but it is documented there too, that they took enough of the chemotherapy drug that would kill a rat, and it would kill. So the first group, indeed, a couple of days they were dead. The next group, keto diet, they lived a little bit longer, you know, it did help them some. The third group, Longo wasn't there, but his assistant called him up on the phone and says, "You would not believe what's going on here." And he goes, What? She says, "Those mice that we gave nothing to, the ones that are fasting, are the ones that are surviving." Now, how does that happen, right? You have mice that are surviving because they fasted. So he started doing the scientific research on that. And it wasn't long after that, I think it was like either weeks or maybe a month or two, which are weeks, right? Before they started trying this in humans, you know? Okay, so why not fast before chemotherapy? Come to find out, the way the story goes, pretty sure that there was this group, or there is this group over in Russia that has been doing this fasting for health benefit and for curing diseases. They've been doing this for years. And he got into that, was exciting. He has a protocol now that he calls fasting mimicking, which is where you can actually eat a certain amount of calories per day and still trick your body into thinking that it's fasting. I may do that next. There's a PDF file that I found online that talks about this. If there's a way I can include it, or if you do want it, maybe this is a better way to do it. If you want this document, which I found, just let me know in the comments and I'll shoot it out to you. It's called Fasting Mimicking, and it's a way that you can get into like 100%. According to him, the results are like super similar to being on a complete fast. So, and they're talking about not ones that are like 72 hours or 48 hours. It's like a complete week fast, where you do like 7 days without going without food. And that's just incredible to me. I mean, I want to do stuff like that. So Fernanda makes this audio, and she tells me about this friend that she has over in Portugal. Or maybe it was Brazil, because Fernanda's from Brazil. I grew up in Brazil, so that's how we have this association. And she goes, she had cancer, and she did not only the ketogenic diet, got into therapeutic ketosis just like you, but she did this crazy long fast. And then that killed off, it actually did, for the cancer she had, all of the cancer in her body, and it worked. And she says, "Dave, this can work for you. Have hope, that these therapies are going to be working for you." And that's an important thing. I really appreciate it. It really made me happy yesterday when I got that message. You can have days that become a time when you feel like you don't have hope. Like, right? There's sadness happening in you, and you think, okay, there's nothing good about what's going on in my life, and like I said, it's a slippery slope, and you can go down that spiral of feeling sorry for yourself, feeling bad, feeling alone. But as I told you, it's so important to have like a team of people that are your tribe that you can go to. Like at any time, I know I can write my family, my kids especially. A couple of them are really close to a point where I can, text them and say, man, I'm feeling crappy today. And they'll come right back and say, what is it, Dad? What's up? Talk to me about it. Or even my mom, she's that way too. She'll come right back and say, hey, got your prayer warriors going on, this is something that you just need to give up and not take on yourself because you can't. So I want you to know that even though this thing is like super heavy in your life, I've talked about for the whole length of this video, and I do this most every Saturday. I come with a history unless there's something like really heavy going on in my life. The only thing is the port placement on Monday. For me, that's kind of heavy. And also, not heavy, but an important thing that my oncologist, Dr. Santiago, said he wanted a second opinion. And I am traveling up to Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa on the 24th of this month, which is, already like a month from now, toward the end of the month, to see a Dr. Kim, which I have read about online. This guy is pretty an important dude as far as the cancer type that I have. So it will be interesting to have a face-to-face with him and ask him some questions, kind of get his feedback of what he's thinking. The two of them will come up with some kind of great therapy for me. In the meantime, I'm thinking they're going to start me on some kind of chemotherapy, but I'm not sure. So what I want to say with all that is that, I do go through my history a lot of times. Sometimes I don't, but I always want to bring the message to you that there is hope. There are ways to find out great information online. On Twitter, I found like a family of people that are just so loving and so caring and so knowledgeable about stuff. There are some dynamic nutritionists, nurses, doctors who deal in this protocol of therapeutic ketosis, and all about using a ketogenic diet for health reasons, not so much for losing weight, for people that are obese maybe, but also for people that are struggling and on the brink of or starting to have symptoms of type 2 diabetes, and Alzheimer's. We've seen reversals in so many things that it's crazy to say, because before, when you said these kind of things, and sometimes when you say these kind of things on the internet, people will, just come right back and say, oh no, Harvard says this, studies at Stanford show this. But if you look, a lot of those studies are like they're either not substantiated by good science, or they're funded, or they're done with there's a little something in there that taints the whole thing, and there are people out there that debunk these things and then come up with the science to prove it. When you come up with studies that show we see a link between red meat and cancer, but they don't know how to prove this link, right? It's like a correlation, like these 70 guys showed an incident of 3% more colorectal cancer than these people. Well, just in the past few days, a study has come out and shown that women have a much, much higher incidence of colorectal cancer by drinking soft drinks. But do they really? Because of the sugars, probably. But red meat, everybody's been trying to knock down, not everybody, a lot of people, but it's by industry. If you really get down to it, you'll find out that it's people that have an agenda normally. And if you're a meat eater and you're doing happy with your health and doing great as I was as far as just the meat part. Of course, I drank a lot. Alcohol does not help your gallbladder or your liver, and I'm proof of that. Not really sure, as my daughter once told me, she goes, Dad, you can't be absolutely positive that was the cause of your cancer. Could have been something else. It could have been something else. That's the unknown, So, and that's, when you get to these unknowns, you can worry about them if you want to. But unless you're working with like a team of scientists that are on the brink of finding out, what is the causation, it's not something I would spend time burning brain cells about. There's so many other things that we have to worry about, so many other things that we could put energy into, especially like getting the word out on this therapeutic ketosis diet that has been so beneficial to so many people. I tell you, when I jumped on this thing on March 14th, and that's how young I am in this whole thing, my whole life, as far as, of course, my whole diet changed, but I felt my energies change. I felt my body kind of get into sync to where it really should be. I looked at some of the foods, and you've seen me post some of the foods that I eat. It looks like you're drinking or you're eating. I eat with a spoon for the most part because there's so much fat like in the bottom of the bowl or on the plate, like you got to slurp up. But I mean, and that looks, because of how we've been trained and how we've been brought up, that big high fat content looks disgusting, and you think that it's going to taste like, eating a spoonful of butter maybe, but it doesn't. It's just, your body just craves it. I mean, once you get that inside your body, you feel just totally different. Your body is able to assimilate that quickly, turn it into energy quickly. You don't have that feeling of like, oh, I'm stuffed, and I have to let my body digest all this heavy food. None of that happens. That happens with sugars and carbs. But with fats, I mean, man, that is the road. We've been so taken away from that road that it's sad. It's sad that we have been deceived by a lot of propaganda. It's so easy and cheap to make these foods that have absolutely no energy in them, or like quick energy, like burning gasoline, like carbs would be, to make a high carb cereal or food or something packaged. It's so easy to make. It's so easy to make pasta. It's so easy to make breads. It's so easy to make cereals. It's so easy to make so many of these things that all they have to do is just like throw a bunch of additives and colors into to make it look appealing to you, and to show you that it's low in fat, because you associate eating fat with becoming fat, which is such a it's such a mistake, actually. So anyway, I hope this video has been helpful to you. Don't want to go over my time. I'm at, it's hard to read, 58. So I got a couple more minutes just to tell you that I'm going to be on next Saturday with an update on the port. Of course, on my daily videos, sometimes I'm on there daily, sometimes twice a day. I try to update you with what's going on in my life. Some fun things, spend time at the beach here, and other things. I show you the foods I eat, what I shop for, and why I shop for it. And hopefully it's helpful to you, because for me, there's not a ton of stuff out there. There is stuff out there, but like I said, it's hard to find. And when you can find somebody that's already walked that path, it's something that you want to follow. So if this has been helpful to you, make sure you follow me. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you like this video. Please leave comments below if any part of this video has been helpful. I would appreciate it. It keeps me motivated. And but my main motivation, even if you don't do any of that stuff, is that somebody will stumble upon this video one day, or the other videos under my channel, and find out more about what you need in your life that may change your life, may save your life, and reverse whatever you have going on. There's no guarantees. I'm no doctor. None of the stuff I say should be taken as medical advice. But I want you to do your research as I've done mine. And I want you to have a great rest of your day. I'm going to enjoy a little more here before I head up to the place. And we'll catch you next week, okay? Thanks for hopping in here. Appreciate it.